November the 20th at City Hall at 7:30. There's the Transgender Day of Remembrance. So, invite everyone. Didn't quite make it in time to actually get up to the first level there, the prime time. And so I had a choice of either reading something or reading a poem, and I decided that I'm going to read something that I think everyone would probably will learn something else about me. I will be reading a poem that I did write, and I have already presented here once already. I am transgender, so I am on the program Roulette. There's one question that I have been asked on occasion. That question, how did you decide to call yourself Stephanie? This also can be included among the first. Along my journey, I've used many different female names. Honestly, there were several. Some of the female names were females that I admired. Some were names so that I would not have to give my real name, so that I would not out myself. As I began my internal self-evaluation, self-realization, and my intensive research, I began scribbling a list of female names. I even went to the internet and typed in female names. There was one name that stood out to me, that name, Stephanie. There was a TV show when I was growing up called the FBI. The lead character was Efren Zimbalist Jr. His daughter was Stephanie Zimbalist. She also had a TV show of her own, Reinvented Steel. Stephanie is a form of Stephen, which also is a form of Stephen, which is the way that I spell my name. Stephanie is from Greek, meaning crown. Stephanie Zimbalist was born in 1956, 1 year before me. There are many other famous Stephanies. And I actually have this wrong here, but it's Stephanie Nicks, or Stevie Nicks, from Fleetwood Mac. And there's also Miss Stephanie Graf of the tennis fame. These are two initial women that I did look up to and have looked up to. I used Stephanie, which I felt was short of fully being Stephanie, short of fully being female. I began using Stephanie, which left, I began using Stephanie, which felt something was still missing. Then I looked for a middle name and came up with the obvious, Michele, from Michael's. There have been many times that I thought that I would, when I formally changed my name, I would use a different female name. I considered Stephanie Austin, as Austin is where I began to completely and totally live female. I've also started part of Stephanie Crino. Many years ago, I had a talk with my grandfather. At the time, he was 91 years old. I don't know why at the time it was important for me to ask him about the history and lineage of the Johnson name. He began talking, and as I found a note card, began writing as much as I could. He said the Johnson name originally was Crino, which is an Irish name. He said the Crino name also is Italian, Latin, and also of Spanish descent. He said the Crinos immigrated to the U.S. and the name was changed to Johnston. Then he said there was some Cherokee Indian. I wrote down as much as I could and felt that I was getting firsthand from my grandfather. The information he provided was all new to me. I had never been informed of the Johnson name. He said the Johnston name was changed to Johnson over time. Within 6 months of my talk with my grandfather, he passed away. I have always felt, since that talk was and is always special to me. My counselors, Ms. Herrick, Ms. Ellington, during my sessions, have often shared in their feedback that I'm going about my transition the right way. It is important to me, I'm the one who's closest going through the process of transition. As I've learned, I'm not alone. There's an estimated over 1 million transgender individuals in the U.S., which includes male to female, female to male. There is a very broad spectrum which a person is on their journey. There is no wrong way. Often I feel people must see the outer female, then internally in their minds, not understanding the process. Many do not want to believe a person can feel inside they are not in their right body. Many people want to rush things like, when are you going to change your name officially, or when are you going to have your surgery?
Maria Clark.
So, serial killer Peter Curtin said before he died, "After my head is chopped off, will I be able to hear the sound of my own blood rushing from the stump of my neck? That would be the pleasure to end all pleasures." And I really liked it, and I use that as a springboard for what I'm about to read right now. And it's called Counting for Art. I am an artist. I have no agenda and I follow no laws but my own. I am selfish and capricious and I make no excuses for my nature. My collection is that of beauty that struck me like a bolt of lightning I could not contain. I struggled and I fought with my life like they fought for theirs, and the exhilaration when it was over and I got my prize was a euphoria as powerful as seeing them for the first time. One, then two, then three, and more, and more, and more. I cannot have enough, no matter what you say, she says, they say. If they want their beauty for themselves, fight for what you feel you deserve, because I will kill for what you have that possesses me. I will not apologize for the muses you cannot see and refuse to hear, but which possess me with a life that is more than this life, which I cannot see or taste, and another, and another, and another, more and more until I drown in the beautiful art that I must create. No amount of holy water that is self-righteous indignation will wash the scarlet sin from my monstrous hands, and neither do I want that reckoning and false promise to taint my unholy work, for the art is my cross, my burden, and I will burn for the blood that I have spilled, and the beauty that I had to have. We had to have that the muses gave me to sculpt and love and worship, and another, never enough, too many to count, and when it is my time to go, be it by blood or sin or passion, by the self-righteous hand of a God too small to command me, or the laws of men too afraid of their own truth, and my time is then to become one with my passion and the muses whom I live for, will you please make me a masterpiece?
Never heard that voice out of you, Maria.
Yeah.
All right, Hope Ruiz.
Come on.
So I kind of get a kick out of this one because it just kind of came out and it's kind of fun. The big change. I love the idea of hot flashes. Woohoo! What an amazing metaphor. Moments of rapturous heat, tumbling, entwined, eyes locked, body intimately tangled in the messiness of the present, peeling off clothing, standing bare-chested, open, to receive even the slightest relief of a breeze. The sensation of my muscles blazing warm, pulsing with passion, so limber and agile, suddenly so sultry I smile, overflowing with life until sweat seeps out of my pores, releases the pressure, cleansing like soft rain. Then comes the chill of being wet and exposed, piling on blankets, wrapping a scarf snug around my neck, chills rattling my bones, brittle, the skeletons of unanswered questions, the loneliness of cold. Nothing seems to soothe the sting of time marching across my skin, my well-worn heart, sleeping with death, my most reliable companion, the only one that doesn't leave as the morning light permeates my room. Her hand to hold as I pass through this maze and into the next. I might as well turn to face her, offer her my worries and doubts, feel her inhale them into something much larger than I can ever imagine, and they're gone, leaving me room to breathe. She is compassion, though her hands feel icy, and soon the temperature begins to rise again, and I laugh at the futility of clocks and thermostats, the arrogance of humans.
Ursula.
My Aunt Paula made the absolute best birthday cakes. 2 inches of buttercream frosting, so sweet, my eyes rolled back in my head. My mother's cakes were not like my aunt's. They were dry. She used honey or applesauce instead of sugar. But my mother didn't like to sugarcoat anything, not my cake and not the fact that she didn't know who my father was. When my mother was pregnant with me, my Aunt Paula said, "Just tell people your husband was killed in Vietnam." My mother refused to reinvent the truth. "I have no father," I would tell the curious parents of my friends or teachers. "Oh, of course you have a father, honey," they'd tell me and pat my hand. This was before I understood all that went into making a baby, that at some point in the process, a drop or 2 from a man was required. But this question was not asked of me often. In my neighborhood, there were few fathers. We were almost to a person, residents of single-parent households. My friend Sarah had a mom and a dad, but they were from Thailand and didn't ask me anything except, "Would you like another helping?" But by middle school, I knew not to volunteer the information. From the Dear Abby columns about the tragedy of unwed mothers, I knew that bastards like me were an embarrassment. A woman not knowing the father of her child was often the central premise to comedy sketches in my high school drama class. I laughed along, pretending like the situation was so beyond the realm of possibility as to be humorous. I wondered who my father might be, but I knew that could be a mixed blessing. My friends never saw their fathers or told darker stories about their dads that made me grateful not to have one. When I was older, I simply said, "I never knew my father," a statement so vague that it could hide everything from death to alien abduction. No one asked follow-up questions after that. When my mother found out she was pregnant with me at 21, she wasn't sure who her father was. It was the late 60s and she lived in San Francisco, sampling everything available during that summer of love. But free love sometimes had unintended consequences. She took me home from the hospital and raised me with the help of my grandparents. My mother never taught me to be ashamed. She explained the situation forthrightly without a regretful sigh. She told me that I had saved her, made her grow up, and realize what was important in life. I never searched for him. I never imagined my mother and I on Mari's stage as he read the DNA paternity results. The thought of presenting myself to some stranger in hopes that he'd accept me as a member of his family was too risky. I found my acceptance in school. I'd stay up late checking and rechecking my math homework in hopes of getting 100% smiley faces. There was nothing my teachers loved more than seeing an underprivileged student quietly apply herself and ace the test. When I became pregnant with our first child, my boyfriend asked me to get married. I told him that I could not plan both a wedding and a birth at the same time. He was going to have to wait. As far as I was concerned, I knew whose name to put on the birth certificate, and that was all that mattered. 8 years of Catholic school had taught him something else. But he waited. 3 months after she was born, we were wed. My new mother-in-law held our screaming baby girl. Right about the time I said I do, the nursing bra from Walmart gave up trying to hold back the fire hydrant of milk my body was producing. Is this what legitimacy is supposed to feel like, I wondered, as a dark stain spread across my chest. Now I can blur my history, tell enough half-truths to make it sound like a familiar, lower middle-class upbringing. And it's so tempting, right? To shave the truth of our lives into an almost forgettable, comfortable story. To not give anyone an excuse to pity me. But now, instead, I tell people the truth and look them in the eyes to see their reaction. Their response tells me more about their humanity than my illegitimacy says about mine.
The Poet Butcher.
I think your show was about reinventing the past. Now, this isn't, but it can.
It's okay, it's an open mic.
Resolutions. We start them, we stop them. Can be once a year. It should be any time of year. And some fools laugh and say, I knew you'd give up. But they don't live where we live. They live where dreams go to die. A resolution is a re-solution. But one solution is to have a solution before there's a problem. It takes work, effort, listening. That mind want to grow. We can't all be what we want to be, but we can be what we need to be. And that's okay. Another solution is to have that hunger, a hunger that can nourish many. I want to mean too much to too many people. You should want to mean too much for too many people. Share, and others should share. Now that's the resolution. When I was 13, I was 21. Because people shared knowledge. I didn't have the same, but I shared what I had. You share what you have, okay? The only ones that don't want to have a persistent dedication to ignorance and rain on our parade. I ain't gonna blow out your candles just to make mine shine brighter. And when you get to the top, look back. They say don't look back. Always look back. Help the next, trying to make their lives better. Thus, making our lives better. Climbing mountains ain't easy. But don't make your problem my problem. And if you do, we'll solve it together. I'm about to quote a lot of motherfuckers. Teamwork make the dream work. Some dream of being president. Some dream of helping the less fortunate become the more fortunate. I dream of singing in an all-girl band named Puss. Now some dream of hating, and they are lost. Put them on a milk carton, make them hard to find. But my resolution is to never appear to be more than I am, but always be more than I appear. Okay? Because if I pull down my pants, all you'll see is a tattoo saying, okay. But if I get excited, it'll say, Oklahoma. City. City of Austin, this year, we all rise. Yes, sir.
So following a path of signs, I published this yesterday and found out about this event this morning. And so once I got here, I decided to pick a couple of entries that spoke to me on the Reinventing Past theme. February 22nd, 2017. I have been interested in all things holistic lately and engaging in the closest I can get to a toxin-free life. I have worked to heal my mind through various talk therapies over the past 30 years. EMDR was a wonderful way to put a good seal on my childhood sexual abuse and the assault that took place in college. Now I'm trying to finally remove myself from the family traumas of my youth. I think a large step toward that came when I enlisted the assistance of a group on Facebook called Search Squad to locate my biological father. They helped me to also craft a letter and make suggestions about how to send a self-addressed stamped envelope and photographs. It has been almost 9 months, and I have heard absolutely nothing. The first months brought a touch of sadness when the mailbox didn't contain my SASE, and then after a while, I just forgot to look for it. Meanwhile, my relationship with my mother remains at a distance. I am allowing her the space to be consumed with her latest grandchild. My parents have somewhat recently moved to Texas, about 2 hours from my only sibling, my half-brother, and his wife. They have married and had a child in these past 3 years. Before this, my parents had moved from Louisiana to my father's hometown in Massachusetts, and this cut our visits dramatically. I have had a struggle with hurt feelings and longings for my family to be something that it is not, has never been, and likely simply never will be. And it has been a bitter pill indeed. So I continue to measure my words and stay aware of my expectations and ground them in reality. My breath work in this regard has been most helpful. My husband and I have been considering a move to be closer, but this is such a complicated situation, and there is a tugging that tells me to go on and fly out. I booked my flight Tuesday to see what Colorado might offer, and I could really use a few signs from the universe to the effect of whether or not we are headed down the right path. If I can find that second one, the first one I decided to read. Probably not. Okay, here we go. March 19th. I just returned home from some time at my mother and father's house in Texas. My little brother hosted my son on a wild game hunting trip to the land he leases just 12 miles north of Mexico. It was a wonderful trip for my son and, as it turns out, for me. I can hardly write for wiping my tears. I'm trying to be discreet as I'm not alone in these moments that are so personal to me and because I have so little control sometimes. I love for my moments alone to be alone. It just so happens that my study is in the heart of the house and there are no doors. A house that I have grown to love so much. It cradled me in its arms and spoke gently to me. We grew together and it will be the hardest thing to leave behind when we pack up and move to Texas. Because we have to. I believe it was Monday night that everyone went to sleep and I still had plenty of time to think. And so I jumped onto a class online through Mind Valley Academy to embrace my energy body. Since my energy session with Grace, I have been chipping away at educating myself. The technique was well explained and I was able to feel the warmth of my energy between my hands as the facilitator described. I coaxed that block from my sacrum and I replaced it with fresh, new expansiveness. While my mom was taking an afternoon nap and my sweet husband was driving our 10-year-old around on the golf cart, I sat on the back porch rocking. I'm interviewing for positions in education again this summer in and around Austin, and I saw myself driving to the lake on weekends to visit my mom. Her respiratory issues are just not good. She's taken such good care of herself almost her whole life, but smoking and toxic chemicals, they take their toll. It cannot be by accident that I have discovered my breath this year. I rocked on her porch, strolled over to the pond, and just let all my feelings and thoughts wash over me. The bitterness from getting the raw end of the deal was absent. Suddenly, I felt like I was the lucky one. Maybe I can learn to forgive her for the things that she did that hurt me. I guess she has probably had to forgive me hurts over the years.
Ryan.
I've lost track of how many nicknames I've had. But since 1997, my friends have called me Doc or Doctor. 1999, my friends gave me this Zippo for my birthday. They had Doc engraved on the top of it. I've still got it. Because I never felt like a brother. He was always the guy who got his ass kicked in a John Hughes film in the 80s. There's a guy I know who, and I've given everybody a nickname. Everybody gets a nickname, because I suck with names. And there's a guy I hang out with all the time. I know he's got a cat named Tater Tot that he walks into the bar. I named him River. I don't know why, he just looks like a dirty hippie. And I'm wearing this hat because I had an Austin Facial Hair Club meeting this morning. You know what happens when 30 guys who all have giant beards get together? You start trying to identify people by their tattoos. Because we all look the same. And I've been wearing the same outfit for, I don't know, a decade? No, if you smell me, it really does smell like I've been wearing the same outfit for a decade. But you have to reinvent your past at a certain point. And I got into an argument with my father. I was talking to him about, you know, the abuse that he put me through when I was a kid. Physical, verbal. etc. And he was like, "You're making stuff up. These are false memories." And I was like, "No. You used to be SDS, Students for a Democratic Society. Now you watch 5 hours of Fox News a day. Who has the false memory?" So that's the thing. You got to evolve, but you have to change for the better. Don't Michael Jackson it backwards. Keep your mind open. Every card game has a discard pile. If you don't like what you have, throw it down and take a new one. Then you get to play the game again. I mean, like I said, I'll always remain a ratty punk rock kid, you know, who I pooped in CBGBs and stuff like that. And that's a past I can't change, because it's with me. But that past of mine is something I never want to reinvent, because it taught me to accept everybody, unless there was violence involved. So I want all of you to keep moving forward. You can reinvent. You don't have to change your name, although you can. But don't be scared of growth. Growth is the important thing. You need to remember what your past was in order to become a better person tomorrow. Don't shift blame. Take responsibility. Become you. That's all I got. Thanks.
Lynn.
Me?
You.
Would you like a chair?
Oh, you already have 1 minute.
No.
Reinvented past. I got a reinvented past sing-along that you're all invited to sing along on. All the French are so romantic, all the Germans love their beer, all the Latins are so dashing, or at least that's what we hear. You can take that kind of saying with a grain of salt or two, but the one thing you can count on to be absolutely true is that all Texans never lie. Never lie. Some folks practice to deceive. We don't even try, 'cause all Texans never ever lie. Ba-bum, ba-bum, ba-bum. Davy Crockett was a giant, that's what all the Texans say. Took the Alamo to kill him, or he'd be alive today. And his final words were, "I'll come back and help you all someday." And old Davy kept his word when he came back as LBJ. All Texans never lie. All Texans never lie. Some folks practice to deceive. We don't even try, 'cause all Texans never ever lie. When Sam Houston lay a-dying and his soul was taken wing, all his choir made him promise, "Don't come back till you can sing. You're a hero unto the nation, but your voice gives us the pain." He came back as Willie Nelson singing, "Blue eyes in the rain, all Texans never lie. All Texans never lie." Some folks practice to deceive. We don't even try, 'cause all Texans never ever lie. All Texans never ever, all Texans never ever, all Texans never ever lie.
I never lie. It's in the song.
All right, Ellen, follow that.
Well, I know each month you have a topic, and I've never really been able to follow a topic. But this one I did. I haven't been here for a while. Things that happened. So this one was August 14th. It's called Soul Food, Food for Your Soul. So I tried. Some days are cooking days, just like some days are painting or writing days. This powerful force takes a hold of me and doesn't let it go until I do its bidding. Used to be I was able to control it, but not any longer. So I stop what I had planned to do and cook or paint or write. No sleep for me till I do. And so once again it comes a knocking. My door blows open, giving me no choice but to let it in. Cook me a Jewish chicken soup with plenty of onions and carrots, it demands. A soup to fix what ails you in your country, and so I do. My soup cooks all day, filling my house with smells of love, warmth, and safety, unlike that of my childhood. While my chicken soup is cooking, I invite my husband to dance with me to the music of his choice. He selects a rock and roll song from our past. Our arms tight around each other, my head resting on his shoulder, inhaling his smells, so addicting like my chicken soup, both fixing what ails me. This chicken soup of mine, plugging me up with such delightful smells, and a remembrance of an older culture that once was, a culture so steep in religion that it walked into gas chambers, knowing it was heading towards death. Was this its destiny, or did it really know that nothing ever really dies? Leaving behind its cooking for future generations. Tomorrow I will mail my chicken soup to President Trump. Maybe it will fix what ails him. Maybe it will fill him up, leaving room for nothing else, and in the process dissolve his anger and meanness, pushing them out the door and way down into Mother Earth where it can do no harm. Save the children, save the country. This is Hurricane Harvey. Our house is weathering this well, no leaks, thank God. Fierce winds whirling around us, trees off in the distance swaying back and forth in somebody else's backyard. Rain falling fast, 10 to 20 inches, continuously for 2 days, pounding the thirsty earth, as though to say, listen to me, take care of me. Thirsty grass is so hungry for this rain, springing up instantly as though trying their best to get their share. Me and Sid sitting tight, memories of our many North Carolina's winter storms, 30 years, blanketing our house and our roads with impassable snow. Sometimes no power except for our gas stove, using snow to flush, so silent, unlike a hurricane. Taking a picture of our first blizzard so that I wouldn't forget her beauty, framing it for our wall over the bed in the guest room. The Texan coast, Houston, Category 4, not seen since 1961. Rivers and streams overflowing their banks, catastrophic flooding, houses and businesses drowning, some people losing everything, no flood insurance. Trees uprooted, thrown across roads, blocking passage to safety. Power lines down, help is on the way. President Trump will be coming next week. The eye of the storm, hovering for several days, dumping 50 inches of rain, making a ruckus as if to say, dummies, you're not taking care of me, nor are you listening to my wants and needs. Climate change is real, and who builds in flood zones, and who paves over grasslands and wetlands? Who? Soul food, peach, food for your soul. I'm a fruity girl, always have been, don't remember a time when I wasn't. An apple a day keeps the doctor away. I remember thinking as I shoved an apple into my welcoming mouth. I had a method for apple eating, one that I always observed. It gave me comfort when little else did. It brought organization to my life. It loved me back when no one else did. Affordable and always available. Now let me tell you about Texan peaches, so delicious, so juicy, running down my cheek and onto my blouse. No napkin for me. And it's so independent, seeking nothing but freedom, to live in peace. No hate or violence for me, thank you. Silence is no longer an option, maybe it never was. Peach juice, a girl's best friend. A ripe peach straight off a farmer's field, round and soft, ready for eating. No blemishes. Can't have any of that on my fruit. Just one bite, and I can feel my heart and lungs rejoice. My body wants to do a body dance. This juicy nectar as it enters my mouth, going deep down to my soul. Nothing stands in her way, dissolving things that I no longer want or need. Not bothering to wipe this juicy fluid off my chin. Not the time for politeness or political correctness. A time to stand up for one's beliefs. A time to say no to hate and violence. A time for a bumper sticker saying, I still vote, do you? This peach juice reminds me of days gone by, of dreams, of wanting more, to explore deeper, seeking endless possibilities to connect with self, and on the deepest level possible still be human. But in the end, unlike my peach juice, I'm not giving myself permission to be fluid and free. I don't do greasy nor spicy, just give me a peach and I'm yours for life.
Because I was at a writer's retreat, so I apologize for coming in late, because I actually like to hear everyone's stories. I don't like to come in and just read. That's it. So this was actually part of a bigger piece that comes out of a manuscript called Without Flag. And because this particular workshop that I was at this week, it was a writing workshop, and it was with a bunch of other Latinas who are Latina writers, and I don't really have stories that are sort of Latina-based, except for this one particular story. And so the television didn't work last night, and so I said, you know what, I want to read at Reinvented Past, so it's pretty short. Hopefully it makes sense, because I wrote this like 7 years ago. I'm only half Hispanic, but not half as in my mother is white and my father is brown. Half as in I do not stand fully in my brown shoes, or half in, half out. 5 years after moving to Texas, I changed my surname. Well, not changed, but altered. The pronunciation. I added a higher pitch to the vowels in the first syllable, while placing a deep emphasis on the second syllable, all with a dialect worthy of a matador. Will this be enough, I wonder? When I'm around real Hispanics, they seem so connected to our culture, so involved, while I am lame in my participation, picking and choosing which brown people and events to support, unable to grasp with full identification my 360 degrees of Latina. But I am not culturally hobbled or injured, not really. Inexperienced, maybe, sometimes uninterested, most times unaware of where on the brown spectrum I fit. It is because of this I have decided to write a blog about how I became Hispanic in 10 days. Well, how it took me 5 years to become Hispanic in 10 days. But I did it, and that is what counts. And if I'm going to feel bad about not being Hispanic enough in the past, only I get to decide whether I'm Latina enough today. When I arrived in Austin in 1989, I introduced myself as Rose Guzman, because that is who I was. That is how my family offered our last name. If my parents were around other brown people, they said Guzman, but that was only for special occasions, special Hispanic relative gatherings. I thought all Guzmans pronounced their name Guzman. I really did. And no one in my Midwestern state of Michigan, in the tiny town of Carlton, population 6,000, thought to correct me. Why would they? They were Lasawickis and Peterseks and Tomaszewskis, eating punchkis behind closed doors, while my family ate carnitas rolled into corn tortillas, and the Louses and Druids and Ellers all ate kraut behind closed doors. All of us, the core of us, behind closed doors. So they didn't even know that Guzman was Guzman any more than I did. They didn't know, but the Texas Hispanics did. The correct pronunciation is Guzman. How many times did I hear this in my first year in Austin? At first I was offended, responding only with a narrowing of my eyes and a refusal to acknowledge their demand. Over and over again I introduced myself as Guzman, 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 Guzman. But they wore me down, these brown brothers and sisters. Guzman. Okay, I would reply, but if you're going to insist on saying the Spanish version of my name, I'm going to insist you put some life into it. And I'd repronounce it, giving full emphasis to the accent on that second syllable while throwing my right hand up into the air. Guzman! I resented their instructions, their gestures, their pressure. No one in Michigan ever made such demands, but then not a lot of Kovalevskis are brown. Everest Rose Guzman from Saginaw, Michigan. Step off. That was 28 years ago. I guess you could say I was a late bloomer, one lame Latina. After 5 years in Texas, I did not succumb to the demands of my brown brothers, but instead allowed myself to open up to those deep roots. The same heritage my parents celebrated when my father played his mariachi music and my mother stood at our kitchen table hand-rolling flour tortillas. I was the only child on my street whose mother rolled out these doughy delicacies. I was the only child who knew what a tortilla even was. Within those first 5 years, I began to call myself Guzman, until eventually I graduated to Guzman, while also accepting my full birth name of Rosemary, instead of the shortened nickname Rose. Today, I am Rosemary Guzman, Rosemary Guzman Hook, born and raised in a tiny town in Michigan, whose parents and grandparents and great-grandparents are from Texas. And hardly anyone knows I was ever Rose Guzman.
All right, Tom.
Oh.
Yeah. Two stories of the 60s.
Thanksgiving.
I am letting you know what's in those stores around there. They killed all the deer and put wire deer up, and the lights are Christmas now, so be warned. But this happened last night, and it's true, and I haven't yet recovered from it. I arrived in this town, and first Poetry Festival was in 1993. It's still going. It'll be on April next year. But I met people who I really loved very, very much for their quality of integrity, their devotion to poetry, and their activism. Now, some are still alive, but call me clearance. Whenever there's a clearance sale on, 40% last night, I go straight down to half price books, okay? I'm down, digging down the clearance, right down the bottom where the 19th century J.M. Barrie plays are, and things like that you wouldn't find anywhere else. So, and then I uncover these. Now, these may not mean anything to you, but these are my friends. And all of them are autographed to my closest friend, Herman Nelson, but not to him. They're autographed to Herman and Helen Nelson. Now, Helen's dead. And these were in the half-price clearance section last night. I bought every one. And I share them with you today because I would like to make the point that reinventing the past often means that our interpretation of it is different to our experience of it. Because the story lasts longer than the people involved in the story. So you can check these out when I give them to you. Has anyone ever heard of John Berry?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Would anyone like to read John Berry? Just say yes. It's yours. Come your way. Oh, there you go. Neil Miley, anyone heard of him? Anyone want to hear about Neil Miley? He's a Canadian airline pilot, real estate agent, poet. Okay. Now, Robin Cravey, anyone heard of him? Robin Cravey is a lawyer who keeps Barton Springs alive, like Susan Bright did the tree ordinance by petitioning the city council by saying the trees are in love with the water and the water is in love with the trees. Now, chemical wedding, how dare you try and save the trees if you don't save the waters, the quality of the waters. Now, Robin Cravey.
I met him.
Yes. And you'll meet him if you come to Last Expressions. Yeah. So these are real people. These books are just evidence of quality, of integrity. Like I give away the books of Deb Akers, People have forgotten who she was, but she set up the readings of Bookworm. She was the editor of Borderlands. She was did the children's literature section for the Austin International Poetry Festival. Joe Brazio, anyone? See, no one. Yes, coming your way. I won't dare.
Oh,
I won't dare.
That was
It was too
tricky
cruel. Frank Poole, anyone heard of him? His ex-wife is on the city council. Leslie Poole. She's one of the most progressive members of the city council of Austin. And Frank Poole was a school. Yeah, coming your way. There you are.
I'll pass those up.
Thank you very much. So, what the point of the story is, reinventing the past doesn't mean to say you lie. What it means is you pick up a pastiche or a personal, emotional fingerprint, like you meeting Robin Cravey twice, okay? Now, Robin, I helped launch a couple of his books. What he does is write about the hike and bike trail. What he writes about and photographs is the beauty of the physical nature of Austin. Now, as poets, you have a secular job ahead of you, which is to bring beauty and harmony back into a world that seems content on self-destruction and other destruction. So your agenda is completely the opposite of the prevailing agenda. While people get their rocks off on the apocalypse and the Armageddon, you're busy building stories and fables and recollections and reminiscences and songs and poems to bring harmony, truth, laughter, and make it part of your life, which is now and here. Austin Rise Roulette.
Thank you so much, everyone, for coming out. That's the end of our show. And once again, I love it when the open mic swells. I like that. Our next show, the final show of 2017, is Festivus Miracle. So, any trivial thing you'd like to celebrate in December, it does not have to be religious. It could just be, a Festivus Miracle. So, get that going on. Especially, I would love to see if anybody like repurposes their puzzle swatches. I think that would, I consider that a Festivus Miracle. That is on December 10th. For those of you who go to our website, I already have 2018 already done because, like I said at the top of the show, I am a Virgo. I like doing things ahead of time and being organized because it's less energy. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming out, and have a safe drive.